Welcome back to another video review and tutorial. This is my first collaboration with a new brand for the channel, MAONO. They claim to be the biggest brand of internet microphones, and I can't say that I have evidence of that one way or the other, but they do seem to be very popular as a brand that you can easily buy on Amazon. What I have noticed about this brand is you do get an incredible amount of value for your dollar. And this is a microphone that is a dynamic mic. Looking at it, it in some ways resembles a Shure SM7B, which is a podcast mic. And this does work for that kind of application, but it takes it a step further by allowing you to connect 3 different ways. So this microphone connects by XLR, it can connect by USB-C, acting as a kind of audio interface for your software, and it connects wirelessly using this transceiver that will support 2 of these microphones. So if you wanted a completely wireless podcasting rig, you could get 2 of these using one of these into your phone or other device and pick up both channels at the same time. When you get this microphone, it's already attached to the shock mount, and I would not recommend that you even remove it from the shock mount, and there's no other way to adapt it to a stand than that. I've removed it to make it a little easier for me to handle it while I'm explaining the initial features of this microphone. And I did want to say up front here that MAONO reached out to me and asked me to show this on the channel. So it's not a brand I was familiar with before, but they have been nice enough to send this ahead of release. So I've got this ahead of the official release, which will be around the time that you see this video, probably the same week. This will have become available widely throughout the world. So the construction of this is really kind of nice. Now, while this is lighter weight than some of the ones that I've tested recently, certainly it's lighter weight than an SM7B, it does seem to be that the sleeve here, the main tube that the mic is made of metal. And you can see that this screen here is also made of metal. It appears that some of the parts related to the capsule might be plastic. And then the back here, we can't really tell because it's a sticker that is, covering the back. I'm not going to try to take this apart. I don't see any visible screws or ways to get into it, but the shock mount does seem to be predominantly made of plastic, which makes it fairly lightweight. When I first opened it, I had the impression that this was plastic, but now that I look more closely at it, this does seem to be aluminum and made of metal on the main part of this. The screen here, which has the foam, this ring here is made of plastic, and it does fit on there very nice. It just has a nice, like a slip feel that when you push it over there, it just stays on there nicely. And there is an option to buy the kit with this mic with the boom arm. Now the one I've got here has the desk stand, and the desk stand is actually really nice. It's actually nicer than the desk stand that I bought and have used for years, giving you a wider range of adjustment. And it also has some nice rubber feet already on it. On my other one, I needed to come up with a solution for that on my own. So this is the kit that comes with it. Now let's take a look at the microphone itself. First, I'm going to pull off the windscreen. So it's got a nice foam windscreen that comes with it. And then when you look at this configuration, it does look with this metal kind of screening around here, something like an SM7. I think an SM7, the capsule's further back in it. So, but this kind of capsule, which is a dynamic capsule, it would be similar to what you'd find in that style of microphone or an SM57. With it coming a little closer, this microphone does not require quite as much gain as an SM7. And I will test that later. Also, I'll give you sound examples with this mic, comparing how it sounds when you use it as a dynamic mic. When you use it as a dynamic mic, you just plug it in, hook up your XLR, and use it like any other mic. We'll see how much gain it requires. And then this just slips on here nicely like that. Now, if you look here, right at this edge, you've got this kind of white colored ring that goes around here. Well, that thing lights up. This thing has RGB color capability. So you can light this up, set the color to match the branding of your podcast or your channel for streaming, or you can also have it do a loop effect where it does colors that go around. Now on the top of the mic, we've got the controls, and these controls include a mute button. So if you're on air and you want to mute, you just can hit this and it will turn off the mic through the various feeds. That will not turn the mic off if you're connected by XLR, but if you're using it through USB or wirelessly, then it will mute the mic. This is a multifunction control. As you turn it, it will control the mic gain. So you can adapt it to your recording software by turning this up. And it will show a different color ring depending on which mode you're in. You can turn up the microphone gain or you can turn up your headphone gain, and you switch between the two modes by clicking this. Now on the back of the mic, we already talked about the XLR connection. There is a USB-C. Now you use this USB-C for two reasons. One of them is to charge the microphone. And when it's charged, it gets a good number, I believe somewhere around 50 hours. The battery life of active use is a little less if you've got the RGB going, as you can imagine, but it still will power the mic from the internal battery for a long time. And then you would need to plug it in here and charge it between sessions if you want to use it that way. The power button here, if you hold it in, it will power down the mic or power up the mic. It takes a few seconds for that to happen. And then if you press it briefly, then it will also change which color the light ring is doing. You can see it's doing it right now. I turn the mic on. Each time I tap it, it goes to a different color. This microphone also includes an internal gate, which they call noise reduction, that has different levels. And if you hold this down for several seconds, you can get into the mode where you can adjust that gate. Now you can also do that through the included MAONO software, and I will show you about that later in this video. And then I do want to introduce how this works with your computer as an audio interface, which is something I usually really try to emphasize and clarify on this channel. And I will show you later on exactly how this appears, but it does appear as an audio interface. And when you connect it by USB-C, it will connect as a 1-in, 0-out audio interface, and that is at 24 bits and 48 kilohertz sampling rate. So it is fixed at 48K, and you can't change that. And then as an output for the headphone part of this, you can play back through it, and then that appears as a 16-bit at 44.1 kilohertz or 48 kilohertz. And it sounds fine that way, but it is good to know that it is recording at a higher resolution of, I guess, a higher bit depth than it plays back at, which has been fine in my testing. I do want to show you a couple of accessories that come with it. There is this cable, which is USB-C on one end, and you can see this is the USB-C so that you can connect this to a device that doesn't have USB-C, or where this just won't work because of the physical connection. Now, if you're on a phone, you can probably plug this right in. If you have an iPhone 15 or newer or mini Android phones, this will plug right in, or into your computer. But if it's, blocked in some way, you can plug it into this. And then this winds up being the transceiver for the wireless. And then you've got USB-A or USB-C. And what's really cool about this is that this adapter is captive, so you can't lose that. It does have the MAONO logo on it, as does this. There is a button on here, which I will explain a little bit later, and two transmit lights on here. There's a 1 and a 2. Actually, it's very similar in appearance to the Hollyland one that I use for my voiceover mic on the channel all the time. There's also on the side here another USB-C port, and you can then use this to charge. So if you have this plugged into your phone, or you have a rig set up with your phone, you can then run this to charging and keep the phone powered up or charged up while using this thing. So because you can use it completely wirelessly, you can set this up on the desk and immediately be recording with no wires, which I thought was pretty impressive. So on your computer, this will then appear as an audio interface, giving you two inputs and then stereo outputs. The two inputs would be for two different ones of these PD200W microphones, and the W stands for wireless. And in much of their marketing, they call this thing the PD200W hybrid, because it's a hybrid mic between dynamic, USB, and wireless. So then the other cable that comes with it is your longer USB-C cable. It's a very nice cable. I'm used to so many of these products come with very cheap kind of throwaway cables that I would never use, but this one is very nice. It's got a rubbery feel, molded. It's got the MAONO name printed on the side. It's also adaptable for USB-A or USB-C with a captive adapter. So I think that's one thing that I've been impressed with the presentation of this, is the level of detail to give you a little more than you're even expecting. So this nice cable, this adapter so that you don't have a problem. Like even if you have a case on your phone, this might interfere with that case. So then you've got this cable, and then on this stand, it's much nicer than expected. And it's got, rubber feet on there, and even the included shock mount is actually really nice, and it comes pre-installed. So those are basically all of the initial things about this mic. Now we want to get into more of the details about how to hook it up to your system, and then how the app works and how it sounds. So I want to show you how the PD200W hybrid mic from MAONO works as an audio interface. And to do that, I'm now back on Mac, and I pulled up the Audio MIDI Setup app, which allows us to clearly see it. Now down here at the bottom, we've got this connected in two different ways right now. Actually, I'm connected in three ways, because I'm also connected through my Onyx through XLR at the same time. So I've got all three going because I'm prepared to do an audio example test that will show you the difference between all of those different recordings. But you could see right here that as a wireless mic, we have a 2 in, 0 out. So if I'm on the input side of it, it will appear as two channels of 48,000 hertz or 48K hertz, two channels as a 24-bit integer. So it's fixed. It only records in this way, 48K and two channel. And then for output, it will play back out over that at 48K 16-bit or 44.1K 16-bit. Now, why does it have two inputs? Well, because you can connect to the transmitter, or that's a transceiver actually, two of these microphones. Now, my testing shows that if you have just one connected, it will record both channels using the same information. So you'll wind up recording in stereo, or you could pick one side or the other to record, but you'll get the same thing on both sides. Now, when you're connected by USB, then you'll see that it shows up same specs, 48K with one channel of 24-bit integer on the input. And then for the playback, it's the same thing. You've got 16-bit playback at 44.1 and 48. So these are pretty typical settings for podcasting and gaming kinds of setups. But with 24-bit, this should also work fine for singing as well. Now, if you wanted to record with more maybe dynamic range, then maybe you'd use the XLR feature of this microphone. So with that, I'm going to go into Twisted Wave and do the audio test so you can hear if there's a sound quality difference between the different connection modes. Now, I'm recording using the MAONO PD200W microphone, and I am maybe 10 centimeters or so from the microphone, and I'm recording using the USB interface. I have the gain on the app set at about 17, and that's from a range of 0 to 20. And I feel like this is working best to get the right gain level for this microphone through the USB connection and with my voice and the volume that I'm speaking at. So now I'm continuing the recording test, but this time I have the noise reduction feature turned off. I felt like I was getting a little pumping or artifacts from that noise reduction, so I thought I would do the test, still in the USB mode, but this time with the noise reduction feature turned off. Now I'm continuing the recording test, and now I have switched to the wireless connection. I'm recording wirelessly from the PD200 microphone into the computer. All the other settings are completely the same, with the wireless setting in the app. And for USB, I've set the equalizer controls completely flat. So you're hearing the sound of the microphone with no additional enhancements. I do, however, have the noise reduction feature set at the medium setting to eliminate some of the background noise in the room. And now I'm recording still in the wireless mode, but this time with the noise reduction feature turned off. Now I'm continuing the recording test by recording through the Onyx mixer using XLR. I have the microphone the same distance from my mouth, and I'm recording in the same way. I have to put the gain all the way up, which is typical of this type of dynamic microphone. It's not getting any assist from the internal electronics because it's recording passively through the mixer. The mixer will not require phantom power in this mode, but you will also not get any of the effects that you could set up using the MAONO app. So, for example, we won't get any noise reduction or the gating to gate out the background noise. Even so, the rejection of noise is pretty good on this microphone. And as a final test and a point of comparison, if you were going to use this for Zoom or something like that, I am now recording directly into the microphones on the MacBook Pro. All right, so I have a setup here that will allow me to demonstrate the MAONO app, which is used for the PD200W, the wireless hybrid mic that we're reviewing here, but it also works with several of the other microphone models like the PD200X, which is very similar to this, but without the wireless feature. Once you've installed the app, then you select which microphone that you want to control with it from this home screen. And basically here you just click on either the name here or click on the picture of the microphone and it will continue. So while I was recording this, MAONO sent me a link to the beta of the Mac application for MAONO. And you can see right here that it is working. I could choose between the wireless connection or just choose the mic directly. And the functions of this are pretty much identical to what you would see on the PC app. And in my really brief testing, everything here seems to function correctly. So I believe that by the time you watch this video, this will be out or nearly available. I've also found that if you want to download the MAONO app, the easiest way to find it is just go to Google and type MAONO download, and it will allow you to jump directly into the website on that page. So we're going to go through some of the features, but I do want to explain the setup here. I've got the wireless feature connected to my iPhone, and that's how I'm recording the audio for this. But at the same time, I am connected through USB directly to the microphone to run this app on a PC. Now, normally I use the Mac, but since the app doesn't work on it, so therefore I'm running it on this ThinkPad that I kind of use for testing Windows-based things. Now, at the very same time, I've also got it connected to an Onyx 8. And that is through XLR. So I have now proven, because this was a question I had, can you connect through all three of the interfaces on this mic at the same time? And the answer is yes, you can. And that really makes it kind of very useful if you want to sync video, audio, and record some of these things separately, but still have the guide track for syncing up multiple cameras or maybe cameras plus a screen capture later on in post-production. So pretty impressed with that. All right, let's take a look at this app right now. You can see right on the main page of it, we have metering here, and this does give you some ability to set the level with this a little more accurate metering, because on the main mic, basically you can hear it in the headphones and you'll see some, blinking of the intensity of this light, but generally it's difficult to set accurately the gain. Now I have found that the gain, which you set right here, typically works best for me if it's all the way up. You can see that as I turn that down, I do start to lose some of the volume. And then this also allows you to set the headphone volume. This completely duplicates what's on the front of the microphone. Now over here you do have a way to mute it. And when you mute it, it does trigger the mute function directly on the microphone. And here's a way to do recording. So you can basically hit this record button, and now I'm recording, whatever I am saying right into this microphone. I can click it here, and then using this, I can download that. Now, the organization of the rest of this app is in basics, scenes, and lights. So that controls these basic different elements of it. And you do need to be connected by USB to a computer in order to use this. On the basics, we have the microphone gain, the headphone gain, and we have the noise cancellation. And that noise cancellation is a type of gating. And now I am recording in a different room from normal. I'm actually at home at the table here, and this noise reduction is really coming in handy. Now, the mono mic is a dynamic mic along the lines of an SM57 or an SM7B, and therefore it does have a cardioid pattern, which has really good rejection. In background noise, if you're not in an ideal situation, can still creep in, and you would need to gate that out or mute that out in post-production if you didn't have a built-in gate, but it does. And if I turn this off, you can probably hear that there's a fair amount of background noise. Now I have a fish tank over here, and that fish tank has a filter that is making this kind of, white noise background noise. So if I turn on this cancellation, it completely removes that. Now if I put it on slight, you can hear it just a little bit. Moderate works perfectly for this. Now you can also go through these modes directly from the microphone by holding down the multifunction button until it goes green. And then as you turn it, you can go from off to slight, moderate, and aggressive. So if you hold it down for several seconds, it will go into the noise cancellation setting directly on the microphone. The problem with doing that is you could hear when I did it that it actually gives you, you can hear it when I'm touching the microphone. And there is a little explanation here for most features. If you hover over that, and basically gives you, a basic thing. If I put this on aggressive, it will probably still work, but you do get a little more artifact from that gating. Now, if you're recording outdoors with this, then you might want to use that. For this application right now, this moderate seems perfectly fine. Now, monitor output is what comes through the headphones, and I am using the headphones right now connected to the mic. And one thing I have observed is that the headphones are coming post-conversion and post-processing, so there is a little bit of latency. And I can hear that latency in my headphones as a kind of a phasing sound or a very short, I wouldn't say it's an echo, it gives it more of like a room sound, like a very, very short, phasey kind of sound. And when you first start talking, that might bother you. You might be better off to take, one of your ears off the ear cup if you want to use it this way. But it's the side effect of it going through the processing before it's going out. It's not a hardware zero latency monitoring like you'd see on some audio interfaces. Nonetheless, it's very usable. And then you can choose what to listen to here. You can choose to listen to your computer playback, or you can choose to listen to the mic. Now, the crazy thing about this is that I can play back this from my computer, and I can play back the video from my phone, and they both come through those headphones. So it's really like having the ability to connect two devices to an audio interface at the same time. I did not expect that to work. I was pretty pleasantly surprised about that. This also does give you a little guide on how to set this up, and that will take you to a piece of the website that does have some pretty useful information there. Now, you can go even deeper into tailoring the sound of this microphone in the scenes page. And there are preset scenes for what's called original, which is what we're listening to right now. And as you click it, you can see it's loading it into the microphone, but this is completely flat. But if you wanted to, you can then start to create a custom version of this, which I did do here. And if you look at my voiceover, then this is one that I was playing around with and I tailored it. Let's turn that reverb off. And you can hear that you've got a full ability to put in a fairly complex EQ curve onto your, to your voice. And this will work through either the wireless or the USB connection. Now, if you're going out over XLR, you're going unpowered dynamic to the mixer, and so then it does not have these effects on it. And if I go back to original, you can see that goes back to flat. There's also a preset here for podcast, and it configures it. It will load that into the mic, and if you disconnect this app, it will keep it in there. I learned that by experimenting with it, that it will hold these settings even if you disconnect it from this app. Here's one for gaming. The gaming one focuses a little more on the kind of mid-range. And here's one for singing that includes reverb. That's way too much reverb, I think. These presets, you can't change them, but you can basically copy them using this, and then that will allow you to set up a new preset based on that. There is no compressor built in, but you do have this very, very nice ability to do EQ. So if you wanted to start to set up your own, then you click on plus here, give it a name, and then I'll put my VO to my second voiceover setup. And then from here, it'll create that, and now you can start to dial in whatever it is you want to customize. If you wanted to add a little bit more to it, you can even, control, almost like a plugin, you can control the shape of these things. And let's add a little low pass there. That's low pass filter, high pass filter. So I added a little air to it, maybe take out a little bit here and tailor that to how you want it to sound. The great thing is that it records it this way, not through XLR, but through either of the digital connections. Once you've got it set up in the way you like for your podcast or for your voiceover, for your whatever content you're creating, you can record it and you don't have to do anything more in post-production. So really useful. And for the cost of this mic, which is $99, these are some really, really great features. I'm going to go back to the flat setting here, which actually I think works just fine for my voice, and just show you the reverb. So, well, I guess I have to do this. So I'm going to start from original. I'm going to create my own custom one here. It's just called flat. And this is a good starting point for testing it. But now I can enable the reverb. You can't enable anything while you're on the factory presets. So there's reverb. Reverb level 1 is kind of like what you would use for a comfort reverb, but it does record this. I learned that by going into here and testing it. And then it sounds to me like probably like a plate style reverb, and it basically turns it up more and more as you pick these higher settings to where it gets pretty crazy. This is very long reverb time. And let's turn that off, but look at the thing here. It says creates a sense of sound in a three-dimensional space by echoes of varying amplitudes and reflections. So that's the scenes setup. It looks like you can also do export and import. So if you wanted to save it and then load this into a different computer, you have that option, or you can delete your preset there. Now, lighting allows you to adjust the lighting, which I did show you before, and the breathing has the light fading in and out, and you have these different colors. And if you want to choose a customized color, you can click this, and then like this, you can choose different colors that are available. This then controls the brightness of the color effect as well. You also have the option to do loop, which is the multicolored loop mode, which gives you that kind of a cool swirling multicolor light effect. You can completely turn off the light effects right here. So full control over the lighting from this page. So here are a few of my final thoughts on the MAONO PD200W. This is the wireless version of the PD200 microphone from MAONO. And I've been very impressed with the quality of the microphone and the flexibility. It's very useful being wireless and having all these connection modes and the ability to use them all at the same time. I think will turn out to be very useful. The microphone sounds good. It's a good quality dynamic mic, and it adds a little bit of extra by having a digital audio interface built right in that gives you some extra features like a very flexible EQ. It's got the noise gating, noise reduction feature that's also very easy to use. And it includes a very nice stand and shock mount. All those things are included with it. Even the level of detail on the cables that come with it, where they have the ability to operate USB-C or USB-A with captive little covers that allow you to switch between those without losing the pieces. The other thing is there is a little bit of handling noise. When you touch the microphone, then you're going to hear that. If you operate this mute button on here, then you hear that because it's a kind of a clicking button. Also, if you operate this, which you turn to adjust the mic gain or the headphone level, then you also will wind up hearing little clicks in there. But I guess that's typical of this kind of microphone. I'm pretty happy with the construction. This is a metal tube on the main part of it. The cage that's underneath here has also got a metal grill on it. Many of these other parts here are plastic, and it is fairly lightweight. I also like that it included the stand and that the stand adjusts much higher than the typical desk stand. Actually, this stand is actually really nice. And if you look at the end of it, it's got both kinds of adapters on there as well. I would say that a downside of this microphone is that the headphone volume is not that strong. When I used it with open back headphones, it could have used a little bit more gain on those. But for my kind of application, the headphone output volume was just fine. It is 16-bit stereo for the output through the digital connections. And so that's something to be aware of if something like that is important to you. Because you're monitoring, if you're monitoring what you're saying through the microphone, it is going through the digital conversion and the effects processing. There is a little bit of latency. And so as you're talking or singing, the conduction of the sound that you hear directly through your skull will arrive at your ears earlier than the sound through the microphone. And that can, for some people, create a little bit of a phasing effect. And I found that I got used to it pretty quickly, but it is not a zero latency monitoring like you would get with a normal audio interface. So that's just something to be aware of, but at $99, this is an incredible value and certainly something to look into. If you're going to set up a podcasting situation where you want 2 microphones and very quick setup, you don't need any of this stuff connected. You can just leave everything disconnected, put this into whatever device, which could be your phone, or into a computer that you want to record to, and then get a second one of these. So if you had 2 of these, you can use one of these transceivers. You can set up your podcast almost instantly by just putting this on the desk wirelessly. You'll get 50 hours of recording time, which is certainly enough for any kind of a podcast situation, and get that basically that really good podcast kind of sound and 2 separate streams that you can record with. For more on this brand or to find links to buy this, you can check the description and I'll have the links there. And you can check out the MAONO PD200W wireless hybrid microphone. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in another video very soon.